Welcome to Developing Emotionally Intelligent Leaders Who Motivate Employees. And welcome to another Lunch and Learn. Well, let's get off to the races, shall we? First and foremost, that's me. I'm going to be talking to you today about emotional intelligence and how absolutely critical that is to any successful workplace. Now, I'm getting a lot of questions as to where can we get the videos for these Lunch and Learns? Okay, all of our Lunch and Learns are all posted on my website, scottwarrick.com. And you'll see where I've put up there, underlining in red, you just click onto or hover over free resources and the Lunch and Learns menu will come down. Just click on that and that'll take you to Scott's Lunch and Learn page. And all of our previous Lunch and Learns are posted there. They're there for you to watch. And anybody who wants to watch them, they're all free. They're all posted there. And of course, anyone who you think might be interested in watching any of these Lunch and Learns or any of these topics, they're more than welcome. And they are welcome to sign up for my free Lunch and Learn so they will automatically get a Zoom invite when it comes time for the Lunch and Learn. So just go to my website, scottwarrick.com, and sign up. And I also want to talk to you Ohio employers. If you are interested in training your employees, updating your policies and contracts for free, let me know. Give me a call or shoot me an email. And there are a couple of programs that are going to be fantastic for Ohio employers. And if you want to talk, hey, let's talk. So where are we going? Well, no, we're not going to Oz, but just about the next best thing. We are heading down the road to trust. Trust. Everything we're going to talk about today is acting like big people. And I'll tell you, emotional intelligence is how you get there. We want to create a safe environment. And I mean a safe environment for everyone. And that's up to management. We're supposed to be running the place, and we want to do it correctly. Now, this is my diagnostic diamond. Many of you have seen this before. If you ever have a conflict or you ever have a problem with an employee or someone else, follow the diagnostic diamond. And of course, I'm a big baseball fan, as you will see through many of my programs. First base is emotional intelligence. You can't make it to second, which is to actually address and resolve the conflict with our EPR skills, which is empathic listening, parroting, and rewards. And I've got a lot of programs out there on EPR skills. And if you can't make it to second base, you sure as heck aren't going to make it to third base, which is where we build trust. We build trust. People do not believe anything you say. They watch what you do. And the first glance at this is a little odd because look who you got standing on first base. Pete Rose. Now, let's just get down to brass tacks, shall we? Pete Rose was the hit king. Passed away, but he was the hit king. Now, I want you to think about that. Of the hundreds of thousands of Major League Baseball players that we've ever had in this country, going all the way back to the 1869 Cincinnati Redlegs, the first professional baseball team, no one has hit their way onto first base more than Pete. Now think about that. What an amazing accomplishment. And he holds about 20 other records. So that's not just the only one, but that's the big one. Probably the best single base hitter ever. At least that's what this record would suggest. All right, the hit king. Now, There he is standing down on first base with emotional intelligence. And I'll tell you, getting to first base is one of the hardest things you will ever do. World Series are won and lost on a single base hit. And if you're batting 300 in the major leagues, you're a multi-millionaire. Big bucks. And you know what that means? You fail 7 times out of 10. 700% of the time, you're a failure. That's how hard it is. And this guy hit his way onto first base more than anybody else. And that's not including walks. Okay, so why is Pete on first base? Why is he not in the Baseball Hall of Fame? Because he was an emotional child. An emotional child. Now, think about this. Does anybody here know someone, whether it's a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer or an accountant or a machinist that has all the talent in the world and actually is probably the best at what they do anywhere? Technically, they're great, but they can't control their ego and they can't control their emotions. So they're emotional children. For Pete, it was gambling. Well, there are other things in there too we're not going to talk about, but gambling. Posted in every major league clubhouse. You do not gamble. And that is a big one, going all the way back to 1919 with the Black Sox. And those guys are still banned from baseball. It is probably the most offensive thing you can do, and it's what every Major League Baseball player is taught. Don't gamble, don't gamble, don't gamble. And what did he do? He gambled. He gambled. Could not control his emotions and ego. So why do I put Pete on first base? Pete Rose is the absolute personification of all the developed talent that you'll ever see. And if you watch Pete Rose run or field or hit, he's kind of awkward. He's not graceful. But boy, oh boy, here's a guy that worked like a dog. He won the Rookie of the Year in 1963. And what did he do in the offseason? Worked in a warehouse. Now picture that. You don't see any Rookie of the Year today with his $8, $9, $10 million a year working in a warehouse. But that is exactly what Pete did, and it built up his body. In spring practice, spring training, he would go out there and hit ball after ball after ball until blood ran down his hands, because he was developing the calluses that would carry him through the rest of the season. That is dedication. And that got him to be one of the best baseball players ever, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. Do you know somebody like that? Do you know somebody with all the talent in the world, but no one will work with them? They're emotional children. So what is an emotional child? Well, there's a lot of definitions out there, but let's cut right to brass tacks. Can you control yourself? Can you control yourself? Can you control your ego? Well, that's a big one right there. I'll tell you, this is the perfect example. Ego. You just get too big for your britches, don't you? As my grandma used to say, you just got too big for your britches. You think the rules don't apply to you. You think you can do whatever you want to do. Well, Pete didn't think the rules applied to him, or he thought he was so smart no one would catch him. And can you control your emotions? Emotions get away from us. I love people who are excited about what they do. I love to see a fire in somebody that loves what they do and they're excited about it, but can you control it? If you can't control your emotions and ego, someone else is going to control you. So why is emotional intelligence so critical? It's self-control, and you can build relationships. Can you control yourself and your emotions and ego? We humans are not wired to be logical people. We're not. We are emotional animals who think once in a while. But I'll tell you, the kiss of death is the lack of control over your ego and emotions. It will destroy the relationships in your life. Now let's just do a little test. Okay. Do you have a right to your opinion? Do you have a right to your opinion? And I'll hear from everyone. It's like, oh, yes, I've got a right to my opinion. Absolutely. Okay, great. You have a right to your opinion. Does that mean the other person has a right to theirs? Oh, yes, they certainly do. Everybody has a right to their opinion as long as they agree with me. No. Now, here you go. You got the Democrats and Republicans, and I just didn't have room in here for the independents and socialists and everybody else. So we're going to have a good lunch. Okay, we're going to bring in free lunch for everybody and dessert. And we're going to have a good, honest, intellectual discussion about the budget, about abortion, about immigration. How's that going to go? In any lunchroom in this country, isn't somebody going to put a fork in your head? Yes. You know why? Because we live and work with emotional children. And you've heard from my other podcasts, I'm sure. You are entitled to your beliefs. Everyone is entitled to their beliefs. If you want to support the president and hang stickers all over your car, knock yourself out. If you want to support the nominee who lost, you go right ahead. You have a right to your opinion. You do not have a right to your behaviors. You do not have a right to attack anyone who disagrees with you. That is not the highest standard in the world, and we can't hit that. Now, here's a bigger question. Is it okay to disagree with your supervisor, with your director, with the CEO, with a surgeon, with a lawyer, and on and on and on and on? And the answer to most of that is no. No. How dare anyone disagree with me? Oh, that is the kiss of death. So we're going to look at, how do we measure this? How do we assess it? How do we target it and try to improve someone's level of emotional intelligence? Well, we look at an emotional intelligence assessment, or EQ, which is emotional quotient. All right, so EQ assessments, how do they work? Well, they were first developed in 1997, and several of them are scientifically validated, and that means, yes, they are measuring what they say they're measuring. All right. The reading is on a 6th to 7th grade level, typically. The one that I use, it's 133 assessment questions that you go through. It's a 5-point scale. They'll ask you a question, and you will answer, no, that's not true, or yes, that's true of me. And these are your responses. So you see, it is wonderful to use an assessment to try to get someone's attention, because usually by the time they get to me, there's a big problem. All of the emotional intelligence assessments that I've given, they've been given to somebody who is failing in some way. And this is how we use their answers to see where they are. Where are they successful? Where are they not going to be successful? It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. And we score these exactly like an IQ test. Like 100 is the average IQ score. Well, that's the same thing for an emotional intelligence assessment. You want to have a minimum of 100. That's what you want your score to be. So you kind of see it puts everything down there in print for the person to see where they are and what they've got to work on. Now here's Tom. All right, I want you to get a big load of Tom here. All right, and Tom thought, oh, these are great scores. Tom runs a hospital here in Ohio. And just to keep things in perspective, Tom is making $500,000 a year with a 100% potential bonus. Well, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. And he saw these scores. He says, oh, these are really good. He said, oh my gosh, my self-regard is good. My emotional awareness is good. My assertiveness is fantastic. My independence. I said, yeah, those are all great. But you kind of see where they dip down. All right? They dip down, take a huge dip at your interpersonal relationships and your empathy for each other. And here's the problem. You want all of your scores to be above 100, but you also want them to be within 10 points of each other. Otherwise, you're going to catch your pants on the high scores. It's kind of like sliding down a banister. Now, if you were going to slide down a banister, which banister would you want to slide down? Well, I can tell you the one on the left, that is an instantaneous vasectomy. And that will require surgery. Okay. And the other guy on the right, he looks pretty happy sliding down his banister. This guy has good scores. So look at Tom's scores again. All right. What's the problem with Tom's scores? If he was sliding down a banister, all those high scores would rip his pants wide open. Or turn it on its side. If you turn his scores on the side and you're walking around, well, those high scores are going to go through the bottom of your shoe like a punji stick. And when you step into your interpersonal composite, you're stepping into a gopher hole and you're going to snap your leg. And my discussion with Tom was pretty frank. Oh, by the way, you do not enable people when you're coaching them, particularly for an emotional intelligence assessment, because quite frankly, the only thing standing between Tom and the door was me. And I said, Tom, your scores are great when it comes to assertiveness and problem solving, but you put no effort at all into your interpersonal relationships and your empathy. You treat people like dirt. You've turned over your executive team, your vice presidents, 5 times in 7 years. You've turned them over. They quit, they leave. Oh, and if Tom is treating his vice presidents badly, do you think that has a cascade effect? And it's pouring out into the nurses and the x-ray techs and on and on and on and on and on. Yes, it is. So guess what morale was like in the hospital? It was terrible, terrible. He used to brag that he would have vice presidents so nervous about coming into the Monday morning executive team meeting that they'd throw up. He thought, well, that's keeping people on their toes. I'm keeping them. No, you're killing them. And of course, that spreads throughout the entire hospital. They can't keep nurses. So guess what? Instead of paying a nurse $60 maybe an hour, they had to bring in contract nurses. Well, what do contract nurses make? $200 an hour, $250 an hour, and on and on and on. They're going broke. They're hemorrhaging money. And it's all because of leadership. Now, this is a story where it didn't have a happy ending. Tom didn't listen to anything, thought I was full of water. Within a couple years, he was fired. Now, think of that. He had the potential to make $1 million a year, and he went from that to unemployment. probably 500 and some bucks a week. Oh, and by the way, he turned into an employment leper. An employment leper. What's that mean? Who's going to touch this guy? You about drove this hospital into bankruptcy. Oh, and pretty much every industry is just a small network. Everybody knew. So Tom was finished. Well, you can read these now, can't you? You're an expert. Look at Ken. I tested Ken several years ago. Look at his scores. And in this particular situation, we gave Ken an emotional intelligence assessment, and I developed a lot of questions from this intelligence test. I wanted to see about his emotional expression. I wanted to ask questions about his assertiveness. How did he handle his assertiveness? A lot of behavioral questions. Hey, Ken, tell me about a time when you ran into a problem employee. Well, what was the situation? What'd you do and how'd it come out? Tell me about a time, and on and on and on. Okay, look at the red bar in the middle. That's 100. Look how nice and even his scores are. And I went back to my client and I said, oh, this guy's great. This guy's great. Oh my gosh, yeah. So we're considering him, they asked, we're considering him for a couple different positions. Which do you think he'd be better suited for? And I said, whatever you hire this guy for, I don't care. I don't care. He's equally talented, technically, for both of those positions. Wherever you put him, he'll excel. You want to hire this guy before somebody else gets him, because wherever you put him, he'll be great. And he was so emotionally intelligent. Won as many Kens in the world as you can get. Now that you know how to read these, take a look at Ben. Take a look at Ben. Ben was already working for the company. You see a problem here? If you don't see a problem here, you probably need to go back to the video and rewind it and start again from the beginning. Ben's an emotional child. He can't build relationships with other people. He has no self-regard at all. He's unhappy all over the place. He can't really take stress. All right? He falls apart. Can you see why I was talking to him? This guy had a lot of work to do. Now, let me clue you in here. By the time you are 30 years old, your brain is fully formed. Fully formed. That means your IQ is pretty much where it's always going to be. Don't have much control over that anymore. But your emotional intelligence can improve. And what's the factor? Why will it improve? It will improve if you are in so much pain that you can take the pain of improvement. Can you improve your EQ? Yeah. Determining on how much accurate feedback you can get. All right, so Ben had a long road to go. If he was interviewing for a job, I'd say, I don't care what he's interviewing for. Do not hire Ben. But he's with you now, so we got to try to help him improve. Now here's Penny. Penny is a tax accountant. And let me tell you right now, technically, Penny is probably the best tax accountant you will ever find in your life. Loves tax law. Loves it. And look at her assertiveness. 134. That's genius. That's genius. It's like, oh, that's really good. Yeah, but look at her interpersonal relationships with other people. She's almost at 100, but there's a 30-point swing. There's like a 30-point swing from assertiveness to interpersonal relationships. She is so kind and she's so nice. But let me tell you a little bit about Penny. Okay, Penny is in her mid-50s, never married. She is living by herself with about 4 cats. Yeah, she's a cat lady. Loves her cats. Now, I got cats. I got 4 cats. but I actually leave the house once in a while. And I don't sit at home Saturday night with a pizza reading the new parts of the tax code or proposed parts of the tax code. You've got to be kidding me. Penny has no life at all. You see, you got to get to know the people that you're coaching, the people that you're trying to work with. She has nothing else. Her entire life is tax. That's everything. So she thinks her people's entire life should be tax. All right. So I showed her these scores and she goes, "Oh, these are really good." And I said, "Yeah, most of these are very good, except your interpersonal relationships are devastated. They're highly damaged because you don't take into account their needs." All right. These are young professionals. They've got kids or maybe grandkids and they want to spend some time with them. You're very, very rigid with that. You basically make them sacrifice their lives to work at this department. And she's really taken this hard because she is a sweet, nice person. And look at her empathy. She's got a lot of empathy. But her attitude is nothing should come in place of work. It's the most important thing ever. And it was really interesting because she said, "Well, yeah, but I give them money when they need it and I help them out." That's great. Giving someone money, giving someone presents isn't taking care of them. How do you treat them every day? And you have no trust with them. Actually, Penny had just had a hip replacement and she missed a few weeks of work. Guess what? Production went up. Tardiness went away. Everything in the department was better without her. The employees were talking about chipping in to get her another new hip. Now think about that. Things are better when you're not there. Oh my God. And this took a couple of hours because she's crying and complaining and blaming everybody else. And I said, "Penny, these are your scores. These are your answers. And you were very honest. The truthfulness indicator of this test said you're telling the truth. And I'm telling you what your people think." Well, we had an aggressive plan for her, focusing on her interpersonal relationships. You don't lower your other scores. I'm not going to tell her to be less independent or less assertive. I'm going to work with her to build up her interpersonal skills. And very interesting, a couple of years later, we tested her again. Look at those scores. Look how even they are. Look at that. Let's put them side by side. Look at year one on the far left and look at her a couple of years later. Look at that. Can people improve? Yes, absolutely. But you got to work with them. You got to coach them. She didn't value interpersonal relationships. She thought giving them money and all this other stuff was going to do it for her. But look, she went from mid-90s to 122. And the morale in the department was raised. And I'll tell you, one of the big things, if you happen to be an accountant and you happen to be a tax accountant, and if you want to get a better job, piece of cake. What do? You try to find another job in January, February, March, April, and May. Why? Because that's when tax accountants, they're looking for people. And at that time, you can get a better raise. Well, guess what? We had the first tax year where we didn't lose anybody. Let me tell you, the number one factor as to how successful and how happy you're going to be in this world is your EQ, not your IQ. Actually, there was an amazing study that Harvard did on its own MBA graduates. And they wanted to see how successful and happy are their graduates. Now, think about it. Harvard. That's good school. That's up there. You got a Harvard MBA? Yeah, you're probably pretty smart. And you certainly have a good resume, right? But you know the problem with having a Harvard MBA? Is you got a Harvard MBA. And you just have to tell everyone that you got a Harvard MBA. Oh, no, 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 no. People don't want to hear how you've got a Harvard MBA and on and on and on. Ego and emotions, low emotional intelligence doomed a lot of these people. And you would have thought, well, you got a Harvard MBA, you're going to be very successful. No, not necessarily. Your EQ is more important than your IQ. Now, let's look at this in the real world. All right. I think one of the best books ever written is by Jim Collins, Good to Great. And in this book, he did this massive study. He wanted to look at companies that were pretty good. They're pretty good. And how did they make the jump to becoming a great company? And how did he measure that? Well, they looked at companies that across a 15-year period, which companies outperformed the New York Stock Exchange by at least 3 times. Now, you kind of see, it's not just a fluke if you're doing that for 15 years. That's a culture. That's a way of doing things. That's leadership. Only 11 companies met this criteria. That's it. Out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of companies on the New York Stock Exchange, only 11 were able to do it. Now, how profitable is that? Okay, the bottom line. And I'll tell you, the bottom line for any privately held company is to make money. It's that simple. And if you happen to be public sector, or if you are a nonprofit, you really want to stay in the black. You don't just throw money away. Okay, so if you took $1 and invested it in the New York Stock Exchange in 1965, and you let that ride through the year 2000, well, if you put that in the general market, you'd have a pretty good return. You would make $56 for every dollar you invested. But boy, oh boy, if you put it in these 11 good to great companies, you would have earned $471 for every dollar you put in. You'd be a millionaire. That is success. So, what did the Good to Great book conclude? Well, there are some rules that we follow, and I want you to think of the emotional intelligence of these leaders. All right. First and foremost, they had a humble ferocity. They were ferocious to win, beat the competition, great products, but they were humble about it. What's that mean? It means they didn't take all the credit themselves, and they focused. Their ego, number 2, was directed towards the company, not towards themselves. These are leaders that you would never see on The Tonight Show because they didn't garner a lot of attention. They didn't want a lot of attention. They wanted everything to be pointed towards the company. And number 3, they had a window versus a mirror accountability, or mirror versus window accountability. What's that mean? It means that when things went wrong, they looked in the mirror. They looked in the mirror and they said, what could I have done? Things went wrong. It's my problem to fix. I got to fix this. And when things went right, when the company was doing well, they'd look out the window and they'd say, it's my people. It's my people. I got great people. They did this. As opposed to the emotional children. What did the emotional children, those leaders, what did they say? When things went wrong, they looked out the window. Said, you guys did it. You guys did it. I gave you great leadership and you did this. And when things went well, boy, they looked right in the mirror. I did all of this. I'm a magnificent person. There's never been anybody as good as me since Fred Flintstone. And then number 4, I want you to think of Ken, the guy that I would hire for anything. What they said was, we got to have good people. First, decide who. Get these good people, leaders, on the bus. Then we'll find them a place to sit. Because a good person is going to do magnificent things for you. You see what I'm saying with Ken? Wherever you put Ken, he will be successful. Now, why does all this work? What is the biggest part of your budget? Labor. And let's get everything in there that accounts for the cost of labor. Now, there's wages and bonuses and benefits and everything. But anything that the company spends to hire, recruit, or retain an employee is a cost of labor, like cell phones. Cell phone shows up as a capital expenditure on your general ledger, but it's not. It's a cost of labor, because if you didn't have people, you wouldn't need a cell phone. Safety equipment. If I didn't have people, I wouldn't need the safety equipment. And on and on and on. Mileage. All that stuff is a cost of labor. So it's the biggest part of your budget. So when you put your attention, your emotional intelligence towards taking care of your people, that is just good business. Particularly as we get into the 21st century, where basically the baby boomers are dying or retiring. And there are not nearly enough Gen Yers, Gen Zers, and Gen whatever to replace them. So guess what? There are going to be more jobs in the future than there are people. You're literally going to be fighting over them. So that's the first thing. It's the cost. I got to take care of the biggest part of my budget. And second, who's actually doing the work? Who's actually helping the patients? Who's actually dealing with the clients? Who's making the widgets? Who's actually doing it? It's your labor force. I will tell you, I would rather have you put in the wrong strategic plans, buy the wrong equipment. That's chump change compared to the cost and the effectiveness of good employees. Well, let's look at an example here. Darwin Smith and Al Dunlap. All right, you can probably tell a lot by their pictures there. Darwin Smith. Darwin Smith was the CEO of Kimberly-Clark. Now, Kimberly-Clark, when Darwin Smith was there, he was working as the in-house counsel. He's an attorney. You kind of get a look at him there. Kind of stodgy, kind of nerdy little guy. Well, he was the corporate counsel for years, not the CEO. And then the CEO died. And the board thought, you know, we see something in this Darwin Smith guy. They promoted Darwin to CEO of Kimberly-Clark. Now, Kimberly-Clark was a little itty-bitty paper company, just a little spot on the map in Wisconsin. Okay? Just nothing to brag about. And their big competitor, the big boys on the block, was Scott's Paper. And that's Al Dunlap over there. All right? They are huge. Huge. They run the show. Scott's Paper. Well, Darwin Smith was appointed CEO, and one of his friends gave him some honest advice. His friend came up and said, you know, Darwin, I don't know if you're the right guy for this job. And Darwin said, I don't know if I am either, but it's mine, and I'm going to do the best I can. So Darwin spent the next couple of months walking around. Now, understand, he'd been there for years. He knows the company, but not from the perspective of CEO. So what did he do? He went around talking to everybody, getting input, finding out what else he should know. And after a couple of months, he brought everybody in the company together, all out on the manufacturing floor. He said, okay, we are going to have a moment of silence. And he stood there and you could hear a pin drop. And I mean, for like a whole minute, it went on and on. And then finally, Darwin spoke up and he said, that moment of silence is for Scott's Paper. we're going to eat Scott's paper. And the place erupted. I mean, that is a big goal. Okay, so he started involving everybody. I mean, he made sure that people feel valued, the employees felt valued, took care of the company, right? Took care of the machinery. And then you got Al Dunlap over here at Scott's Paper. Now, can you see Al there? With his artificially whitened teeth and everything. Can you see him over there? Okay. In my opinion, one of the biggest egotists and failures you could ever imagine. Darwin Smith was concerned about the long term. Al couldn't have cared less. The first thing he did, or one of the first things he did, was get rid of the depreciation. Now, what's that? Well, every year you can take a significant write-off on your tax returns and everything to putting money back into the company. You know, machines depreciate. Well, let's say that their depreciation for a year was 15%. Well, 15%, when you don't spend it on the machines and you put it back into the general ledger as income, your shareholders are happy. Oh, things are going great. Now, can anybody see a problem? A foreseeable problem? If you're not putting the money for depreciation back in upgrading and maintaining your machines? Yeah, it's pretty predictable. But Al didn't care. Why? Because a few years, he's out of there. He took all of his stock options, millions of dollars. Okay, so that's what's going on at Scott's Paper, where over here, Darwin Smith has his people working, thinking of new ideas, and one of those new ideas was Huggies. Huggies. Is anybody familiar with Huggies? Anybody who has ever changed a diaper knows Huggies. And I have 2 kids, and I will tell you right now, we bought Huggies. Absolutely. Because every parent knows what a diaper blowout is. We've all seen it. We don't put it on YouTube. Oh my God. You wish you had bought the good diapers then. You wish you had some Huggies. Okay, and guess what? Years down the road, Kimberly-Clark bought Scott's Paper. Magnificent leadership at Kimberly-Clark. Pathetic over at Scott's Paper. And today, Scott's Paper is owned by Kimberly-Clark. So does this work in the real world with other companies? Oh my gosh, yes. Study after study after study. Supervisors in one manufacturing facility, they were trained in emotional intelligence skills. Well, what's that? Listening skills. You shut up. You know, like your EPR skills, empathic listening, parroting and rewards. You got to listen to people. And problem solving skills. They reduced their lost time accidents by 50%. And anybody who's ever managed workers' comp knows the value of that. Formal grievances were reduced from an average of 15 a year to 3. And the plant exceeded its productivity goals by $250,000. Hey, that's real world right there. Let me give you another example. This is from my hometown, the Big Basket. I am from Newark, Ohio. No reason to vacation there or anything like that. But right outside of town was Dave Longerberger. And he had a really stupid idea. Really weird. He's in his basket, he's in his house, and he said, I think I can make high quality baskets. I think the world loves baskets. I think they will pay $50, $100, $200, $300 for a basket. That's what I think. Me, I'm not so much. But Dave saw something there. So out of his garage, he's making baskets. And then he grew the company and grew the company and grew the company. And it turned into a cult. And that was their headquarters out in East Newark. All right? I'll tell you, it's amazing what he was able to develop out of baskets. You could go to Walmart and get a basket for a fraction of a cost. but people used to take their vacations. You're like, yeah, let's go pray to the big basket. Oh yeah. I'll tell you, it's amazing. He bought a local hotel to house the people who were coming to vacation at Longaberger World. And he bought a restaurant there so they'd have a place to eat. It was amazing. How did he do this? Dave Longaberger's principles, I want you to think of the emotional intelligence, the control of ego and emotion. You listen to others. Are you seeing listening pop up a lot? Having trust in others. He trusted somebody till you couldn't trust him anymore. But he trusted people. And that works out for 95% of everybody you meet. It's the 5 and 10%ers we got to watch for. And you got to have a sense of humor. Okay, are you seeing the good to great principles come out? Now, is that going to make you successful? Oh my God, if he could do it with baskets. Now, here is a graph of all the way up until about 1999, which is when he passed away. He died young. He was only in his 50s. But they started tracking this in like 1991, and they're already at 2,500. Look at that growth. Everybody wants a basket. You want a basket? Oh my God. He created a cult and a following that was unsurpassed. And then, unfortunately, he died. He passed away. And his motto when he died was Longaberger, everything for the house, including the house. He was going to start building modular homes. I could only imagine, they'd have been up to 20,000 employees if he'd have lived. It would really put Newark on the map. But then he passed away, and I don't think he had a chance to develop his daughters. Okay, now this is my own personal opinion, but 2 of the most worthless piles of skin you would ever meet in your life. Okay, why is that? Well, you see Dave there in the picture? See how he's dressed? Casual. See where he's sitting? He's out there. Everybody knew Dave. They knew him. From my relatives and friends who worked out there said, well, once in a while you'd see Tammy. If you wanted to see Tammy, you would go to her office. Magnificent office. Okay, that's great. And one of the things she did was sold off all of the ergonomic equipment, or most of it. And how do I know that? One of my clients bought it. Now, Dave was concerned about the workers' comp claims, but he's concerned about his people. You get a lot of carpal tunnel, you get a lot of problems when you're making baskets. Well, he put all of this ergonomic equipment in to help his people and everything. And the people saw this as, yeah, it's a good way to save money on workers' comp, so it's a good investment. But this is a guy that cares about us. All right. She sold it to another company for like 10 cents on the dollar, is what I'm told from the buying company. And my HR friend said, yeah, you won't believe it. We got all of this ergonomic equipment pretty much for free. We just had to go get it. Okay, what message did that send to the employees? I used to see Dave all the time. I never see Tammy. And then if she'll talk to us, and got rid of all the ergonomic equipment, to mention a bunch of other changes. So they started laying off. They started laying off. Workers losing their jobs. And these were good paying jobs. They're losing their jobs. I mean, wreaked havoc on the Licking County, Newark area. At the time that they are laying these people off, Rachel, who is president of the Longaberger Foundation, is building a multi-million-dollar home in Johnstown, Ohio. Now, I don't begrudge anybody who can afford to build a multi-million-dollar home. But should you do that when people are losing their job and wondering how they're going to survive? Is that we're all in this together type of attitude? All right, I want you to look at this graph, and I want you to see and sort of decipher. Can you see where things went bad? Can you figure out when Dave wasn't there anymore? Can you figure it out? Looks pretty startling to me. Oh, they're out of business today. Drove them completely out of business. A business model that never should have succeeded except for the pure grit and genius of Dave Longaberger. What a shame. Supervisors in one manufacturing plant where they were trained in emotional intelligence skills, problem solving, listening skills, empathy, relationship building, they increased production by 17%. Your people will march through fire for you if they trust you, if they think you care about them. Let's look at sports. Is emotional intelligence important in sports? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This drives me crazy. Every offensive offside penalty is a lack of emotional intelligence. And you hear somebody say, yeah, but I'm just so excited. I know you are. I love that excitement. Control it. Because it's controlling you. And you just gave us a penalty. Every time there's a fight, it's like, okay, are you kidding me? Don't hit them back. Well, here we go. This is the Ohio State-Michigan game years ago. And that's Marcus Hall. I mean, a top NFL prospect, just a fantastic football player, and he's on the kickoff team. And he's running down the field and everything. There were 2 or 3 Michigan players who I just suspect probably didn't get to play much anyway. And they targeted Marcus. Was it intentional? I don't know. But my hat's off to them. They outsmarted Marcus. And they hit him. They ticked him off. So what did Marcus do? He hit him back. And anybody who's watched sports knows it's the one who hits back who always gets caught. He got thrown out of the game. The biggest rivalry in all of sports. And he got thrown out. And it was his senior season. That was it. And I had him sign this photo for me, which I thought was very entertaining. Oh my gosh. If you have a problem with emotional intelligence, you need to work on that. If you can't control yourself, others are going to control you. It's easy. Well, let's take a look at the various pitfalls of emotional intelligence and what we're trying to improve here. Now, that's my youngest son, Nicholas, and that's from Halloween one year. So that's my symbol of the little 3-year-old evil person in us that always comes out when we lose it. Yes, when we lose control, we all turn into evil 3-year-old versions of ourselves. So what happens to us when we do that? Well, first of all, we dismiss any opinions that disagree with ours because we know everything. No one can tell me anything. They cannot admit their own mistakes and they will not accept feedback. So they cannot improve. When things go wrong, they blame everybody else rather than trying to correct the situation. They adopt a my way or the highway type of mentality. Oh, how many times have we seen that? From brilliant people. That's that mirror versus window mentality that we talked about in the Good to Great book. Great leaders look out the window when things go right and they praise their people. When things go wrong, they look in the mirror and they say, what should I have done differently? That's emotional intelligence. We know we all make mistakes. The test of genius is, can you learn from it? They have little or no empathy for other people. They don't want to see the perspective of other people. They don't care. Very self-centered. They manipulate others to get their own end. And they cannot build trusting relationships with other people. You can't do that as a leader of people in the 21st century. Now, you could do that in the 1900s, right? In the 20th century, because we had more people than there were jobs. Can't do that now. Nope, not if you want to survive. and they're mind blind. They don't realize the destructive impact they have on other people, or they don't care. They walk around the office like Pepe Le Pew, just dragging and leaving this stink everywhere they go. And you can see it in the eyes of the people who walk by. They see this leader come through or this person comes through and they're like, oh, shh, 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 shh. They'll get quiet because it's not safe. Because they know that the person walking by is an emotional child, or more commonly referred to as a jackass. Have you ever seen people who are mind blind? I can do anything I want. I'm the governor of New York. I come from royalty in politics. I'm a Cuomo. So I can reach up the skirt of young interns and grope them whenever I want. That's a privilege of mine. I don't think so, pal. And there's old Charlie Rose, bottom middle. Oh my God, just so genteel. What you saw on TV apparently was not Charlie Rose, because the word is that I heard from the reports, Charlie liked to walk around naked. Yeah, really. Okay. Now, I don't know if you've ever encountered this, but I haven't. You ever have somebody just so arrogant that they'd walk around their office naked, or maybe walk around the office naked? I think that might require a pill. Something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Harvey Weinstein, Matt Lauer. And most of you probably don't know the guy in the upper right-hand corner because he was not elected president. He was the front runner, Gary Hart. And he was fooling around with his assistant. And he says, well, I'm not having an affair. I'm not fooling around. Follow me. And they did. And the reporters got this picture. That's why he had to drop out as the Democratic potential nominee. And a guy by the name of Bill Clinton jumped in there. And that's how Clinton got to be president. I love bootlickers. Bootlickers. I want to surround myself by people who will protect me. I want people who will tell me what I want to hear. They love people who agree with them. So they surround themselves with bootlickers. So what do you get? Groupthink. You don't always have the best idea. And here's Kim Jong-un, and I will tell you, he should have listened to somebody before he got that haircut. Did no one tell you not to put a bowl on your head and have your hair cut? This guy could use some serious advice. And they micromanage other people. If you want a job done right, you got to do it yourself. Oh, okay. They believe no one can do anything as well as they can. So they build very little trust or increase the abilities of others. Well, guess what? You should not be leading people, Scrooge. Here's what we got to do with you. We got to put you back into that great technician role, whatever that was, electrician, lawyer, doctor. You shouldn't be in charge of anybody. You shouldn't be in charge of anybody. Because what happens if you don't develop your people and you don't think anybody can do anything as well as you can? What do you do if you go on vacation? What happens if you break your leg? Are you like Penny and she gets a hip replacement and production goes up because it's better that you're not there? You've got to develop your people or you're not a leader. And finally, they do not address and resolve conflict. They don't do it. They suppress it, which means they're passive aggressives, or they escalate it. So they're little devil attackers. They do not resolve it. Oh no, my favorite management axioms. Ignore it, it'll go away. No, that's how things blow up. Therefore, these people enable bullying behavior. In the end, the emotional children will create a very combative environment that kills trust, and that environment will kill you. There's your emotional child checklist. Now just take a gander at that. Do you work with anybody on that list? Are you someone on that list? Emotional intelligence is the single most important skill you will ever develop. And if you have people like this, you got to develop that out of them. The bottom line, they're very intolerant of anyone who disagrees with them. Now, I'll tell you, sometimes people choose to be difficult. They choose to be emotional children. And so a little adjustment in how they're failing and how they're not going to get to where they want to go in their career will do it. Sometimes, yes, that's enough. But I will tell you right now, when I coach somebody, the first thing I want to have a full fasting blood work done. Why? You got to have a healthy body. You got to have a healthy brain. You use your brain to control yourself. And if you don't have a healthy brain, you won't be able to control your emotions. And that is reflected in your blood. You would be astonished how many people that I've caught that are having problems at work, and lo and behold, they're diabetic. Your brain runs on glucose, you know. So guess what? I'm trying. I know you're trying. You're diabetic. We got to get that under control. Doesn't do any good to coach you until you get your diabetes under control. And I just want to talk to the ladies for a minute here. I just want to ask you, is menopause real? Is that a real thing? Yeah, I can hear you right now. Yeah, there you go. Actually, let me talk to the husbands out there. Is menopause real? Is that a real thing? Oh, yes. Oh, my God, yes. Oh, yeah. Thyroid. On and on. There are dozens of hormones in your body that can go haywire. And you better make sure that you've got those under control, because you're not going to be able to do what I'm going to want you to do to become an emotionally intelligent person. And it is amazing how many times I've seen people get their diabetes under control, get their thyroid under control, or something like this, and they're a whole new person. It's kind of like walking around on a blister that doesn't heal. Well, you'd be grouchy too. And the third pillar, bottling. The research on bottling in just the last few years is amazing. We are making tremendous strides with our veterans coming back from the war. Oh, and by the way, in case you were not aware, 14 times more veterans are killing themselves at home than got killed in the war. They understand the body-brain connection. They understand the blood connection. What won't they do? Talk about their feelings. Talk about their emotions. When you bottle those up, it's like a kettle on the stove. It's going to boil and boil, and then one day it's going to explode. You're a case study waiting to happen. No. I have referred a lot of my clients on. I'm coaching them, but they need a professional therapist. Sometimes you can talk to your spouse. Sometimes there's a trusted friend. But you cannot keep all of that in check. And with professional people, what have I seen them do, including myself? I just steer everything back into my work. I divert. No, that will kill you. Absolutely. If you want to be an emotionally intelligent person, yes, you have to want to do it. And then on top of that, you got to be healthy enough to do it. And these three pillars of distressing are critical. Well, I hope you enjoyed the session. I'm Scott Warrick. This is going to be posted on my website for everybody to see. And we will see you next month for another Lunch and Learn. And if you want any of my programs at your facility or look at your handbooks, things like this, get in touch with me, because there are programs that will get that paid for entirely for you, reimbursed for free. And I think free is just about the right price. That's how critical this stuff is today. Hey, you all have a great one. We will see you next month.